Hey everyone, Dr. David here. So we're going to talk about what is sickle cell disease because I find out that when especially now in the US, I'm in the US and I meet Black people, African Americans, and then we talk about sickle cell disease, and it's like you see this blank stare, and it's like clearly they don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, they've heard about it, but because they don't have anybody close to them or in their family, in their circles, social circles, they don't really have a clue what it is. So basically, sickle cell disease is this. It's a genetic disorder that affects primarily the red blood cells. It's not only the red blood cells, but it affects primarily the red blood cells. And what happens is that the red blood cell, which we all have, is meant to be nice and soft and round and squishy and flexible and able to move through blood vessels, especially when it gets to the smaller blood vessels. So it's able to squeeze through the blood vessels and deliver oxygen to the cells, tissues, and organs. Now, what happens with sickle cell disease is that under certain conditions, could be stress, emotional stress, could be dehydration, could be infections, that red blood cell begins to get dehydrates, it loses its fluidity and fluids, and then it shrivels up and becomes sickle shaped. So instead of having a nice ball, flexible ball-like structure, it shrivels up, it becomes like a sickle, and hard and sharp and brittle, which means it breaks easily. So what happens? What's the problem with that? The problem with that is that as you get through with the larger blood vessels, there's no problem. But when it gets to the smaller blood vessels, especially those in the hand and the feet, even those in the brain, in the smaller blood vessels everywhere practically, those red blood cells tend to get stuck. Not only do they get stuck in those smaller blood vessels, they tend to aggregate, they tend to bunch up and therefore cause a plug and block the blood vessel, the flow of blood. But what happens when blood flow is obstructed or delayed? Well, the cells that are expecting the oxygen begin to cry out. And they do that by sending out inflammatory signals. Everybody knows what inflammation is, I hope. So inflammation is like the cells are reacting, they're screaming, they send signals that's kind of like painful signals. There's swelling, there's redness, all kinds of stuff going on. And eventually that pain, if it goes on and on, if it's repeated over a period of time, those cells could actually die. And we see all kinds of damage in the bones, in the eyes, the teeth, the gums, the gut, the skin, all over the place. Because all over the place, cells require oxygen and other things as well, and nutrients as well. And so that oxygen is lacking, which is the most important thing. If that oxygen is lacking, the cells will react. They get weak and they die. And so that's what really the main problem with sickle cell disease is. Also, because I mentioned, if you remember, the cells can become brittle and they can break up. So the blood levels of the individual can suddenly drop because of the cells breaking up and damaging. Or sometimes the spleen just mops up all those defective cells, and that can cause a major problem as well. What I've found out is that some individuals tend to have what is known as the hemolytic blood breaking up. That's what hemolytic means. Hemolytic crises, which means they lose blood a lot. Other individuals have the vaso-occlusive. Vaso means blood vessel, occlusive means obstruction. So that is called the vaso-occlusive crisis. That's a very painful one. That's the one most people know about. The hemolytic too is obviously very important because if you don't have blood, there's a great chance of death, really. And by the way, 10% of all kids with sickle cell disease will have strokes. 10%, think about that. And the peak age range is between 2 years and 16 years. And that's how we got into sickle cell disease, by the way, because we started having a lot of kids with sickle cell disease coming to us with strokes from sickle cell disease. And that's how we got into it. All right, so those are the two main kinds. I think there's a third one. I don't think actually. There is a third aspect that I don't think is being given enough attention to, and that's the fact that these kids are chronically anemic, hence the name sickle cell anemia. Anemia simply means the blood levels are low. So they're like half, the blood levels are like half what is the expected blood level for an individual. And so that obviously means they're not going to be delivering enough oxygen to the cells, the tissues, and the organs. And so over time, there's breakdown, there's damage, because the body is just not able to manage. I mean, the body is working on two cylinders instead of four, or two cylinders instead of six. Of course, with time, you're going to see the consequences. So it's these kids, that needs to be dealt with. I think only once in a while, when there's a sudden drop of PCV, they go to the hospital and they give them blood transfusion, or they go every month, every 2 or 3 months for a top up. Well, that's good. Certainly not optimal, because there are consequences of having frequent blood transfusions. One of them, of course, is infections. So what we need to do is ensure that the body is not breaking down these red blood cells as rapidly anymore. In addition, we also have to ensure that the cells that are being damaged are being given the right nutrients so they can cope with the damage. They need help, so you can help them repair the damage. All these things are possible. It just takes us as healthcare professionals thinking in this direction, rather than just thinking in the old way that we've been doing it for the past, 50 plus years. We need to have a different approach to sickle cell disease, and one that focuses on strengthening the body, not just focusing on the red blood cell itself, but looking at the red blood cell as part of the whole body, and focus on strengthening the body, including the immune system. All right. Please follow us. Our videos are available on YouTube and hopefully on social media if my staff do their work. And of course, you can link and donate. You can share this video with others. So God bless and have a great rest of the day.